So yeah, when you're dealing with databases, you can do basic select statements, and then those select statements allow you to retrieve from a database. So in this example, we are going to be looking at the COVID vaccinations table. COVID vaccinations table has columns such as date, FIPS, MMWR per week, reciprocal county, recip state, completeness percentage, administered dose, one recipient, administered dose, one population, percentage. Series complete, yes. Series complete population percentage. And we're going to go through this real quick. So we want to retrieve data from there. We can use a basic select statement. So select, and if you have dyslexia, you can just copy a field name by right-clicking and copying it like that. Then moving over to the other dates that you want, going copy field name. You can type them in, but honestly, it kind of feels like a waste of time sometimes. So then we are going to do this when you are dealing with data in SQL and you want to ensure that you aren't going to accidentally process data in an incorrect way, you can put your data in parentheses, which will allow you to utilize PEMDAS. And then in this example, we're grabbing reciprocal state, the date, the series complete yes column, divided by the census 2019 results. Which are farther along in the data. And we are going to get all of that data. So basically what this query does is it says, show me reciprocal state, show me the data associated with it, and take the series complete yes data, divide it by the census 2019 data, multiply it by 100. We're using aliasing right here, which basically names the result from this as percent fully vaccinated. That's why you see this entire column right here. And we are retrieving it from the COVID vaccinations table. We're then applying a basic filter where data is greater than or equal to 2021 0101, and we're ordering it by percent fully vaccinated in descending order. When you order data in SQL in descending order, you can see how it orders. You can, yeah. You can order it ascending or descending like that. For creating, if you ever want to store your results, what you can do is you can make what's called a view. A view is just a stored SQL statement like that. What you do is you type create view as, you're using the alias operator, and then basically you just make sure that you wrap it up. And then you give it a name. So create view state vaccination rates as this entire thing. And there might be, yeah, basically that will store that. So we can reload this, which then shows that has been created, state vaccination rates. Press that to load the result from the query. You can bring it over here, and you can see it was loaded over here. Recip state, date, percentage fully vaccinated. And then this is pretty useful for when you want to load data into something like Power BI and analyze it. Um, Essentially, you run this, um, which basically selects everything from the view. Uh, State vaccination rates right there. You can also filter on it if you really want to. Where percentage fully vaccinated is greater than 50. And then that will find everything right there where it's greater than 50. And that is basically how you use a view. But if you want to understand a view conceptually, again, all you're doing is storing that statement. So state vaccination rates, copy to clipboard, we can send it to the SQL editor. The create statement is right here. The create statement allows you to store the select statement that you used to retrieve the data originally. And then what happens is whenever you ask for the data from it using a select statement, you are running that query again. Basically, again, it's just a stored select statement that is run every single time you select from it. There's a difference between views and materialized views, but I will currently just describe a view, which is what it did. Then you can use what are known as CTEs. CTEs are ways of essentially making, even though they're technically a different thing, temporary tables. So with vaccination, percentage as use the with keyword on these, and then you create parentheses. What you're doing is essentially creating a temporary result set, which you can think of as a table to simplify the conceptual understanding, at least for a beginner. That is sufficient. So in this, you want to say the columns that you want to keep. So select reciprocal underscore recipient state. I think it's recipient state. Select recipient state, um, comma, date. The reason it's highlighting that date is because that is also a keyword in MySQL. So if you can avoid calling a date column date in MySQL, that's a good idea because it can cause issues sometimes. Series complete population percentage as percent fully vaccinated from COVID vaccination table. That will essentially create a table that we can use, and we have all of these stored in it: the recipient state, the date, the series complete, population percentage, percentage fully vaccinated. And then what we can do after that is we can make a select statement on it. So select recipient state Then, since we have this series complete, we can find an average of it. For that, use the AVG for average function percent underscore fully vaccinated as average percent 2021. Since when we made that, we did a little bit of that, and now we can move on to filtering. So, need to fix that. Boom. So, as average percentage 2021, so that that has an alias. Making sure I got those column names correctly. I did. Awesome. Now we need to specify where we got it from. Vaccination underscore PCT. We're getting it from this, which is the, in quotes, temporary table we're grabbing from, which is really a common table expression, or a CTE. Then we can do some filtering on it. So where date, which is this column right here, between, for dates you have to put them in quotes for easy filtering and to avoid errors. So we're going to filter between the 1st of January and the final day of the year. Then what we're going to do is we are going to group by the recipient state. Order by average percentage 2021 in descending order. So what this will do is it will create this temporary table, or at least we're going to say that's what it is for conceptual understanding. Technically, temporary tables and CTEs are different things. Temporary tables are used for temporary data storage and they're generally deleted, whereas a CTE is written like this and used to store data temporarily, but isn't technically a table. So, yeah, just thinking of it as a table makes it simpler when you're working with it. So we create this common table expression to store that data, and then we are selecting from it. You just need to make sure those columns match up, then you're doing an average on it, saying that you're selecting from that, filtering, using a between clause on those two dates, and grouping by the state. So then you press run, and it will run right here. Right now it is making the CTE, then it will select from it, and then that lets you get the recip state and average percentage in 2021. And as you can see, when you order by a column in descending order, when it's a numeric column, it will start with the highest value and it will go down because it is descending order. It is decreasing as you are continuing down that column. If you were to switch it to ascending, then of course it would run this again. It would make the CTE, it would select from the CTE, and then as you can see, it flipped the order. It starts with null, which basically means it doesn't have anything there. Then it goes to 0, and then it climbs up this way. So based on how you want to see your data, you can do ascending or descending order. But yeah, pretty much CTE is, or can be thought of as a temporary table that you can select from. You can use them for doing logical data manipulation, like you can select all the data from a table in a specific date, and then you can have all of that data from that date in there. Then you can make another CTE after that, and then you can group that by a certain column. So then you have all the stuff from that date grouped by a certain column. Or if you are working with different tables that have different cardinality or have a different grain, you can use them to kind of debug your joins and make sure that you aren't running into row explosions. Row explosions is essentially where you have a table over here on the left side and a table over here on the right side conceptually, and one has more data in it than the other in terms of like the row level of specificity. So basically, you have one that's like one row per customer, but then the other is like many rows in the table that refer to their diagnosis, but it's associated with their ID. So if you try to join on that ID, you'll probably get a row multiplication, which is basically where you get rows in the join that are essentially equivalent to the rows in the left table multiplied by the average matches in the second table minus however many are filtered out by your where clause or your having clause. Um, yeah, so CTEs are pretty useful. I'll probably go over them a little bit more in detail in a future video, but yeah.